Want to pass PSM II Professional Scrum Master II exam? Using PassQuestion PSM II exam questions can help you pass the Professional Scrum Master II exam easily. If you are the first time to participate in Scrum PSM II exam, selecting PassQuestion PSM II exam questions will increase your confidence of passing the exam and will effectively help you pass the PSM II exam. Question 1. A Scrum Master is not only a servant leader to the Scrum team and organization, it's also considered a management position. Which 3 activities describe what a Scrum Master manages as reflected by the Scrum Guide? Choose 3. A. Reporting on the performance of the sprint. B. The way Scrum is understood and enacted within the organization. C. Managing the capacity and utilization of each development team member. D. Managing the process in which Scrum is applied. E. Managing the product backlog items and work in the sprint backlog. F. Removing organizational impediments that limits the team's progress and productivity. Answer: B, D, F. Question 2. An organization has just hired you as a new Scrum Master to help them transition their teams from their current traditional process to Scrum. The teams are currently structured to specialize in a single function. This is also known as component teams, where a team would only address a single layer, i.e. design, front-end, back-end, database, testing, etc. You've introduced the concept of cross-functional teams, where all the skills needed to produce business functionality, from end to end, are inside of a single team. What should you keep in mind when transitioning from siloed teams to cross-functional teams? Choose 2. A. It is easier to compare the performance between cross-functional teams in order to identify to which teams to assign tasks and which teams need additional coaching. B. Newly formed teams will need time to stabilize before reaching their peak performance. During the initial stages of forming, performance will suffer and productivity may be low, although even then delivery of business value is still likely to increase. C. Without feature teams, you cannot do Scrum. Postpone Scrum adoption until the teams are reorganized in feature teams. D. People from the different layers and components will need time to become accustomed to working and delivering unified functionality together as one Scrum team, thus productivity may suffer. Answer: B, D. Question 3. Paul, a product owner of one of the Scrum teams, has been attending the daily Scrum. During the daily Scrum, the development team members have been reporting their daily work to Paul so that he is aware of their sprint progress and what each member is working on. What is the best action for the Scrum Master to take? A. Ask Paul to stop attending the daily Scrum. B. Coach Paul and development team members on the purpose of the Scrum events and let them figure out what to do in this situation. C. Allow the Paul to participate in the daily Scrum as he is responsible for the success of the product. D. Facilitate the daily Scrums to avoid any conflicts between the development team members and Paul. Answer: B. Question 4. Stephen, the Scrum Master, is approached by one of the development team members saying that they are not completing regression tests for all of the work they are performing to the level defined in the definition of done. They have discussed this with the product owner and decided to remove regression testing from the definition of done. Which two actions are the most appropriate for Stephen to take? Choose two. A. Reject the decision as the long-term maintainability of the product will be negatively impacted by modifying the definition of done. B. Accept the decision as a mutual agreement has been made between the development team and the product owner. C. Ask the development team and the product owner what problem they are trying to solve by altering the definition of done and removing regression testing from it. In what ways will this decision impact transparency and quality? D. Ask the development team and the product owner if they are still able to produce potentially shippable product increments by altering the definition of done. Answer: C. D. Question 5. At the end of the 8th sprint, the internal sponsors are upset and angry with the progress of the product being built. The current state of the product is not as expected and will require additional sprints and more budget than originally anticipated at the start of the project. What factors may have led to this? Choose 3. A. The product owner has not been engaging with sponsors frequently enough and has not been kept aware of the overall progress of the project. B. The sponsors haven't been using the sprint reviews to actively engage, and inspect and evaluate progress. C. The scope changes have not been tracked adequately and the change request process has not been followed properly. D. The stakeholders have not been using the daily Scrum effectively to track the development team's progress. E. The Scrum Master has not ensured transparency. F. The project plan proposed to the sponsors at the start of the project followed stringently. Answer: Abe. Question 6. 3 development teams are currently building a single product and pulling work from the same product backlog. All 3 teams have identified that they will need Dan, a database specialist, to work full-time in their team for the next several sprints. What should Stephen, the Scrum Master, do to solve this potential problem? A. Manage the items in the sprint backlogs so that Dan can be utilized evenly for each team. B. Assign Dan to the team with the most urgent tasks first and then move him to the next team and so on until the required support is completed. C. Facilitate a discussion with all development teams on how they want to deal with this issue, and help them implement their preferred solution. D. Ask Dan to work with the HR department to recruit and hire additional database specialists. In the meantime, have the product owner move items that do not depend on Dan to the top of the product backlog. Answer: C. Question 7. An organization wants to apply Scrum to build a new product and has hired Stephen to be the Scrum Master of 3 new teams that will build the first release. The organization is new to Scrum and asks Stephen for advice on how to start. Which 2 things should Stephen first advise? Choose 2. A. Each Scrum team has its own product backlog with items only their team will be working on. B. 1 product backlog to represent all of the known work needed to be done for the product. C. 3 product owners, 1 for each Scrum team. D. Having 1 product owner to be accountable for maximizing the flow of value throughout the development process and provide transparency on the overall progress. Answer: B. D. Question 8. A development team has a total of 6 members, 4 members who work full-time in the office and 2 members who work part-time at home. The development team is complaining that it is too difficult to synchronize every day and has suggested having the daily scrum every other day instead. What would be 3 key concerns if the daily scrum is held less frequently? Choose 3. A. Impediments are raised and resolved more slowly. B. Opportunities to inspect and adapt the sprint backlog are reduced. C. Less information about the progress will be shared, causing the sprint plan to become inaccurate and reducing transparency over progress toward the sprint goal. D. The Scrum Master loses the ability to update the burndown chart adequately. E. The product owner cannot accurately inspect utilization of the individual team members. Answer: A, B, C. Question 9. According to the values of Scrum, which is the best way to create development teams? A. The product owner will create a skills matrix according to what is needed for the project and work with the technical leads to allocate resources to the team. B. Work with the leadership team to allocate members according to skills, seniority and experience to ensure that all development teams are balanced fairly. C. Provide boundaries to the developers and allow them to self-organize into development teams. Answer: C.